Hey everyone, it's Julie, and this video is a VR to Science to Soul Tarot. She has created a tag called Decks in My Arena. I will leave a link to that video. It was wonderful to watch and just to hear about her go-to decks that she uses for the various what she calls arenas in her life. So the examples that she used, or her arenas, were, for instance, career and grief, loss, and relationships. So do check out that video. It's a lot of fun to watch. And this VR is going to be a little different. Jen has made this tag very flexible, so you can discuss as little or as much as you want and use whatever decks you want. And so I'm going to be focusing on tarot, and the arenas that I will be focusing on are the arenas in my life this year that have been more like battle arenas. So we're talking gladiator arenas of my life, where I've had to either battle myself, battle my mindset, thoughts going on, constant overthinking, rumination, self-doubt, all that good stuff, or arenas where I've had to fend for myself and protect myself. So, of course, the decks that I will be talking about in this video are not used simply, solely for these arenas of my life, but these are the ones that I did, in fact, reach for these areas. And I'm hoping that this is not like a downer of a video. That's not what it's intended to be. And as I say that, the first arena that we'll be discussing is grief. Grief is an arena in my life that I did not think I would have to step into this year, or I was hoping that I wouldn't have to step into this year. But when I knew that Juju was in a pretty bad place health-wise, I really struggled with what to do, because she had reached a pretty low point at the end of the summer. And I have a video that talks more about this, but and Matt and I had discussions about what to do, and we're not always on the same page about what to do. And so I struggled a lot. And the deck that I reached for, which I do talk about in the video that I just mentioned, and I will link that somewhere. The deck that I reached for is the Mystical Cats Tarot. And I don't think I really need to explain why I chose this deck. I thought it would be an appropriate deck, and I decided to use a structured spread from Sasha Graham's book, 365 Spread. So it was a pet spread to gain some guidance on, how to proceed in my situation, in this predicament that I found myself in. And and let me tell you, this deck delivered. It really did. The messages were really clear. And for a few of the cards, I didn't even look at the titles. I didn't even look. It was all about honing in on the images and the messages that the images had to give me, that the cats had to give me. And some of those messages, they didn't even fit into the textbook definition of what the title of that card would traditionally mean. And that wasn't the point. That wasn't the point. It was very clear what these cats are trying to tell me. And I really took it to heart. And it strengthened my resolve and made me, it validated my intuition. So this really helped me. And this is the deck that I used in kind of that first stage of grief with Juju. And then after we decided to let her go and she passed, of course, I was devastated. And it affected me much more than I thought it would, and it still does. And so I struggled a lot and continued to grieve. And one day I was feeling particularly down, and so what did I do to try and cheer myself up? You guessed it. I went shopping and I bought a tarot deck that I just randomly saw in my recommendations feed on Etsy, and that is the Butterfly Effect Tarot. So this is not another cat deck, as you can see. And it was the uplifting voice that I needed. It was the gentle touch that I needed. It's a pip deck. And so that kind of neutrality in itself offered an additional stability that I really felt I needed. And so I think that was added help in kind of using this deck to make me feel a little more secure, make me feel a little more grounded and comforted in the messages that it had to give me. And so this deck really helped me with my grief. And it is, I would classify this as a comfort deck. And I can see myself turning to this in future times of grief. And it is a deck that reminds me of Juju, but not in a sad way. So that was the first arena that I stepped into this year. The second arena that I wanted to talk about is the arena of creative expression, specifically my writing. So for as long as I can remember, I have had aspirations of being a published fiction writer. I went to school for it, grad school. I taught writing for a time. My current job is focused in writing and editing, and so it's always been a part of my life in some form or another. And I've been working on my manuscript this year, and I've been struggling with a lot of self-doubt, a lot of imposter syndrome, just feeling stuck, but trying to stay motivated, trying to keep moving forward in the process. And so one of the decks that I would consult for guidance on how to move forward with my manuscript, which direction should I take with my manuscript? That deck is the Spirit Keepers Tarot. And I mentioned in the very beginning of the year that I was going to continue my deep study of this deck. And then I really didn't mention it again because I figured I said it once and it was just something that I kind of did behind the scenes. I didn't want to be too repetitive about it, but I kept up with studying with the deck and working with it, I would say, into the summer. And so I consulted this deck for the creative arena in my life because this is a deck in which one of the main intentions is to to deliver messages to us from our holy guardian angel. I'm totally on board with that. Yes, please. Messages from a higher consciousness. Yes, I'm all for it. I'm here for it because my creative expression and my creative outlets, that has always been a part of my identity. It's always meant so much to me. It's very deeply a part of who I am. So yes, that was upside down. I was certainly looking for that kind of divine voice and that divine guidance, and I do feel like I received it. And then very recently, in the past few months, I have been questioning whether I even want to continue fiction writing, which is a pretty big deal. It's a scary notion because, as I said, identifying as an aspiring fiction writer has been something that I've done all my life. To think about letting that go has been something that I continue to grapple with. And the deck that I have been using to kind of explore those feelings has been the Raven's Prophecy Tarot. Maggie Stiefvater, the creator of this deck, is also a fiction writer. And in her guidebook for this deck, she talks about the Suit of Wands with a primary focus or a major focus on creative projects and creative pursuits. Now, certainly this deck and the images can evoke messages outside of that for sure. But given that she's a fiction writer, it's understandable why she would see the Wands suit that way, because I myself also very much see the Wands suit in that way. And so the fact that you have a deck creator who is also a fiction writer, you've got this deck that is inspired by her fiction series, and the Suit of Wands, which very much evokes for me messages about creativity. It's a no-brainer why I gravitated towards this deck. And I mean, I've just overall been using this deck the last few months because I love it so much. But this was especially good for kind of unpacking why I feel the way I've been feeling about my writing. And the final arena that I wanted to talk about, that I've had to step into this year, is the arena of race and culture and being a woman of color. And of course, this is an area of my life that, you know, I've had to deal with situations in this area all my life. But given the kind of social climate in the US the past few years particularly, I've had some struggles and some difficult conversations with certain people in my life. And this year has been no exception. A couple of my close relationships, you know, I love these people and I know they love me. They're great people and they support me and they say they have my back. It's just some of the opinions and perspectives that have come to light on the issues of race and inclusion have been really surprising and disappointing, especially when talking about issues surrounding also like white privilege. And some conversations have been pretty tense. There's been some defensiveness on both sides, definitely on both sides, and just just my feeling kind of speechless, you know, not knowing really what to say. Yes, feeling like I have to defend myself, feeling hurt. And again, feeling surprised that these same people who I thought saw me maybe aren't quite seeing me, if that makes any sense at all. So the decks that I reached for when dealing with that kind of hurt and dealing with how to handle these types of situations with these people in my life that I love, and they're good people. With the one deck that I worked with, and I won't go too much into it, this deck again, because I've already shown it, is the Spirit Keepers Tarot. And this deck is black and white. And so I really like that aspect of it. It's very neutral in terms of, you know, the depictions of the people in the deck. So that's one thing that I really liked about this deck. Of course, as I mentioned before, the whole idea of receiving messages from that kind of higher consciousness, that higher power, that was a comforting idea to me, something that I felt I really wanted and needed in these times that, you know, my feelings felt hurt and I didn't really feel like I knew what to do or what to think or how to handle certain things, you know, to ask for guidance from a higher spirit. I mean, yes, thank you. Yes, please. And I mean, given that this deck was created by another Asian woman, I mean, hello, like she knows the struggle is real. So yeah, fuck yeah, I'm going to use her deck. I'm definitely going to use her deck. So then the other deck that I reached for that should come as really no surprise is the Lightseers Tarot. This is a deck that just has a beautiful essence to it, and it reflects the society that I live in. It's modern, and you know, especially my surrounding area, which is more diverse. You know, this deck is one that speaks to me very clearly. And, you know, I mean, I'm not trying to be an insensitive dick, but, you know, when I'm dealing with issues of race, I am not going to be reaching for a deck that has all white faces staring back at me. You know, I mean, I have those decks. I love those decks. But this would not be the time for those decks. I want a deck in which I feel like the faces staring back at me understand. And so this deck has been great. Very versatile, of course. You can use it. You can use all these decks in so many different ways, right? However you want to. But yes, this has certainly been a go-to and will continue to be a go-to for this arena of my life. Finally, a more recent addition to my collection that also serves as a great deck for this arena of race and culture is This Might Hurt Tarot. I'm sure that's also no surprise. Again, another deck that is diverse and inclusive, and I would say that this deck particularly is more inclusive of different body types, different ages, queer friendliness, and I would say that this is a deck where I do not see myself reflected. I think there's maybe one Asian person reflected in this deck, maybe two Asian characters reflected. So I don't really see myself in this deck, and it's still an awesome deck. There's no perfect deck out there, in my opinion. You know, there's no such thing as the perfect deck, or at least I haven't found one yet. This deck is still a wonderful deck to use because, again, as with the Lightseers Tarot, when I look at these faces, when I see these people in these cards, I feel like these would be the people that understand. This is the community of people that would have my back, that would support me and protect me, and be able to empathize. So another wonderful deck, very easy to use, very clear messages. Yeah, I think that this will be, again, another go-to for this arena. And those were the decks that I used in 2019 for the gladiator arenas of my life. So I would love to hear your thoughts on the decks that I've shown. Please feel free to participate and engage in the tag as well. Let me know what the arenas of your life are that you have been stepping into this year, and what decks you've used. Thank you to Jen from Science to Soul for a wonderful tag, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.